Oh, yeah, we're gonna start right now.
What? Shalom Yahshua, Yahweh Shem Yahshua Rakatah, Yahweh Shema Adam Shem Yahshua. This is the ISBK that started out at 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, in 1969 under the man General Yohana. We're here to teach the truth of the Bible to so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American Indians, all the real Israelites according to the scriptures. Now, again, it being our Friday Lashaman Kodash class, this is going to be the class where we start to really get into the flow of breaking down Psalm chapter 83. We've already done 2 parts before today, so today is part 3. And in this class, we're going to continue breaking down more of Psalms 83 bit by bit. Now, there's recently been a revision in prayers, and so it's a beautiful thing to see that things like this get addressed in the school whenever there's any kind of errors or anything like that. We have an entire priesthood of brothers that go and proofread everything that we do to make sure that we always have everything as accurate as possible. You know what I'm saying? When we go into Psalm chapter 83, we start talking about all the other nations and all the sentence structure and all the vocabulary that's involved in each sentence. Just keep that in mind that we are always looking to try to bring the most accurate, as far as the Lashon Kodash goes. And it's an ongoing learning process too, because it's not like the entire nation is fluent in this language already. It's like we have to retake it back, but at the same time, it's not something that anybody on the earth already uses, because ancient Hebrew is not like modern Hebrew. It doesn't have the vowels that modern Hebrew has. It sounds a whole lot different. And so we actually are putting this together based off of the fact that we're not using any vowels. It is all consonants. When we go in, again, we have a number here, da, ha, and wa. Again, a, ba, ga, da, ha, and wa. This is 3, 4, 5. No, it's like it. It's 4, 5, and 6. Da is a representation of the character of what would be the 4th character in the alphabet, so it is considered to be 4. Verse 4, verse 5, and verse 6. So that's about as far as we've gotten so far at breaking down Psalm chapter 83. And this is what we got so far. We're going to briefly go over what we talked about last time, and then I want to get right into the next couple of verses. Very quickly here, it says, Amarwa, Lakawa, Wanakaf Yadom, Magalia, Wala'a, Yazakar, Sham Yasha'ala, Iwada. And what this is saying is, they said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, and not that they may be remembered the name of Israel anymore. We know that when we read prayer that this is exactly how it sounds, but this is how it looks. This is how the Hebrew looks. Pay attention to the ancient Hebrew characters that we have here. And then as we start to fill in the scripture, the precept, we then put in blue marker, we put the translation in English. But more importantly, what I like to do is I like to underline the root word in each phrase that's being said. So if it's they said, then the word said or say is the word amar right here. You can tell because I have sometimes I'll even go as far as to underline the word that corresponds with it. Sometimes I forget, but you pretty much get the idea there. Lakawa, that's the word come. And then cut is the root word for there. For being a nation. Gawai, which means nation. That's the root word for that. So on and so forth. All right. The next precept, verse 5, is Kaya. Nawai Tazawa. Laba. Yakadwa. Al Yakam. Barias. Yakarathwa. You understand? And it says, for they have consulted together with consent of unity concerning you a pact or a covenant they form. You understand? So this is saying that when the translation that's in English, it says they created a confederacy, a pact, a covenant. They created a confederacy, or basically a team of nations came together with one mindset against the Most High, against the Israelites. And because that goes one and the same. When you're going against Israel, you're going against the Most High. And I'm talking about the real Israel, not any people that try to claim that land today that may not actually be Israelites according to the Bible. And so when we read this prayer, we're constantly praying for the Most High to bring that justice to the Israelites of the Bible. We're not praying for the Israel Gaza Strip. We're not doing any of that because we know very well, because of our history, because of the prophecy, because of how everything has led up to what's going on today, that this is what's happening. They have actually gone through and have caused our people to not know our name anymore. You know how important it is that we understand this scripture? Because your average everyday Black, Hispanic, and Native American does not know who they are anymore. And this precept here is a prayer to then reverse those damages that have been done, that have been prophesied about us. Because keep in mind that because it was in the scriptures, that's exactly how it had to play out. So we had to lose our name. We had to lose our heritage because we went against the Most High by not keeping the laws during the time, after the time of Moses. You understand? And so the Most High had us be subject to these nations, and we're actually going to go into the specifics as to who these nations are. So again, it says, "For they have consulted together with consent of unity concerning you, a covenant they formed." Verse 6, it says, "Ahalia Adawam, wa Yashamayaliam, Mawa'aba, Wahagari." We'll go through this one at a time. The tents, meaning the house, the family tree. Basically the tent means the house of Edom. So the word tent right here is ahal. Ahal. Edom is Adawam. Adawam with a ma at the end of the phrase. Adawam. Edom. The next nation that is mentioned in this confederacy, or let me back up a second. So Edom is what you know as the Caucasian nationality, or the root of what would become the different branches of the Caucasian nations on the earth. Edom, in its actual definition, does mean wasted away. Esau is a name that actually literally means hair, red. But Edom is the actual name, and I actually can pull this up here because I'm in that verse. Verse 6, the word Edom, it means red. The word Edom actually means red. The tents of Edom, this is a nation of people that have red skin. And why is it red? Because you can see the blood through the thin layer that lacks melanin. And that is why their name literally means red. Okay? Not to be confused with the so-called Native Americans who were considered to be redskins, when in fact that was just a much more bronze, I guess you could say lighter, darker brown. No, we're talking about like actual red. Like when people of this nation here, especially those that are more pure in their bloodline and they don't have a lot of mixing going on with other nations, they tend to become very red for any damn reason. Being out in the sun, being sick, being happy, being sad. Their cheeks turn red, their face turns red, their whole demeanor is echoed in time to be just like this, because this is where they come from. Many classes we can go over, they go into the history of who they are, but this is the main nation that put together this conspiracy, or put together this confederacy. You understand? That's why they're mentioned first. And even some aspects of them are mentioned more than once as we continue through the list. The second in that list is Yashamayala. You'll notice that this actually sounds kind of similar to Yasharala, and that means something different. Yashamayala, which would be the Ishmaelites, or the so-called Arabs. Ishmael. Let's see. That's literally what it is. It just means Ishmael. Ishmael. So based off of the name of one of Abraham's sons, specifically the son that he had with, I believe her name was Hagar, the Egyptian. Ishmael. The Most High's covenant was to go down to Jacob, and not Jacob, it was the covenant went down to Jacob and not, my bad, Isaac. I'm tripping. So Abraham begat Ishmael and Isaac, and the covenant that the Most High had for the inheritance of the world was going to go down to Isaac. And because Ishmael was not the chosen seed, there may be some animosity that he held against what would become the Israelites that was from the seed of Isaac. So Edom and Ishmael have the closest rivalries with the children of Israel that come after Abraham. Edom is at enmity with Jacob. Ishmael is at enmity with Isaac. You understand? And so the Arab nations to this day try to believe that they have some kind of claim on the Holy Land as well, and that's why the Middle East is parted up in so many different ways. Now, continuing here, Moab, this is the Chinese, the so-called Chinese. Mawa Abba is the pronunciation of Moab in the Lashon Kodash. Because again, we're not using any vowels, it is Mawa Abba. And in ancient Hebrew, Ah is actually not a vowel. Wa Hagarium. Hagarium is the Hagarians, all right? The Hagarians, which are derived from Hagar, which is mentioned there. You can consider them to be more or less descendants that are in northern Africa in the Egyptian region, but maybe not so much exactly the Egyptians, because you do have Mizraim, you have Canaan and Put, a lot of other Hamites, right? But the Hagarenes are in that region, may not actually be direct descendant of, or at least a subservient descendant of them, because Hagar was an Egyptian, but the Hagarenes are considered to be kind of like a family within the Egyptians. All right? So we're going to read the whole thing at once, and then we're going to erase this, and we're going to continue with verse 7. Amarawa, Lakawa, Wanakak Yadam, Magalia, Wala'at, Yazakar, Sham Yasharala, Iwada, Kanya, Nawai Tazawa, Laba, Yakhadwa, Al Yaka, Barayat, Yakarathwa, Ahalia, Adawam, Wayashamai Alia, Awa'aba, Wahagari. So what we're doing is, again, we're pleading to the Most High in Psalm chapter 83, pray, asking that the Most High bring justice on these nationalities that have grouped up together against the Israelites to overthrow us and to erase our memory from history. You understand? And that's something that's crazy, is because if the so-called Jew that lives in that land today derives from the land of Edom, then this definitely doesn't pertain to them, because they're part of the reason why our nation isn't actually remembered, or at least the real Israelites are not known to be the real Israelites. It is them instead that have taken that seat and have assumed a position in the land and are constantly at war now in 2024 against even their own people within their confederacy. They're also at odds with the Chinese. And there's a lot of intermingling going on here, because some of the tribes of Edom, or dukes of Edom, do deal with the Chinese, specifically the Russians, right? The Russians do deal with some of the Ishmaelites. Some of the Ishmaelites do deal with Edom, but then also deal with Moab and their confederacy. And there are others too. But one thing you notice is that most nations, when the time comes, they tend to gravitate towards their own kind, their own families. And that's the natural course of things. The only people that are not naturally tuned to do that are the real Israelites, because we don't even know how close of a relative we have towards one another. And that's part of the problem. That's why the ISBK is here to actually show us how our nation is actually supposed to act as one family, and to also disregard the culture, the influence, the languages, and the purposes that the other nations around us live, because again, it is all a distraction. And this scripture right here is very important. Of course, the whole Bible is important, but this one's so pinpoint about what our purpose really is in this life. Coming back to our heritage, coming back to our language, praying for the Most High to bring justice in a time where everybody is just going with the flow and everybody is used to things as they are given to them. They don't continue to ask questions in the Christian church. They don't continue to study. Those are the things that lead to our downfall in every community that we are at across the entire globe. Now, continuing the Psalm chapter 83 prayer, going down to verse 7 again, Ah, Ba, Ga, Da, Ha, Wa, and Za. Za, verse 7. Starts off by continuing that list of nations that are a part of that confederacy. We have Gabal, we have Ammon, and Amalek. We're going to translate this in a second. For those of you that are reading along, this is the kind of class where you want to take notes, because you want to write this down. Getting the entire breakdown of Psalm chapter 83, all the parts that we've done so far, and all the parts that we'll continue to do until we finish the prayer. It's important to start setting aside some space in your notebook so that you can eventually write down the entire prayer. But these classes that split it up into different parts, I've tried to do at least 3 verses in each class. That's kind of what's been the cadence so far, so I'm trying to stick with that. But it's given us time to really zoom in on each phrase, understand each phrase that we're reading when we're reading the prayer, to understand the vocabulary for every phrase. And that's what we're going to continue to do here. So we have Gabal, Wa'alaman, Wa'alala. Let's start with those 3. Gabal, which means to bound or to border. A region that the people were located in ancient Phoenicia. It's mentioned in the Bible as a place known for its skilled craftsmen and builders. Gabal, known in Greek as Byblos, was an ancient city located on the coast of modern-day Lebanon. That would be Gabal right here. Then we have Wa'alaman, or Ammon. And Ammon is the so-called Japanese in modern day. Gabal. Let me get this. Yeah. Amalek. Long, Ammon, and Amalek. So verse 7 starts off with 3 more of the Confederate nations that are against the Israelites. Japanese, are against Israel also. Don't care how much anime you watch, don't care how much you like your PlayStations and your Sonys, they still are against Israel, even though they were bombed at the end of World War II. They are still Confederate with Esau. That's why even today they're considered allies with the very same people that bombed them. Because back then, when you go even further back, they all understood that when we are in power, they are not. When we are not in power, they all seem to have some form of dominion over the earth. And they would prefer for it to stay that way. But we cannot be distracted by everything that they offer. And again, they considered to be the Japanese. At the time of the ancient times, let's see. Amalek was very closely related to the Moabites, their neighbors and kin. The Ammonites frequently opposed Israel, leading to numerous conflicts, including during the reigns of Saul, David, and Jephthah. People living east of the Jordan. This is kind of the further east you go, the further east they have gone. Moab and Ammon are closely related, just like the Chinese and the Japanese are. And in some other cases, further down into the family trees, you also get the North and South Koreans from them as well, with a lot of intermixing going on between them that kind of sort of has become the North Koreans. Then you have Amalek. I'm not going to break down all these because I need to get a full breakdown on them. But Amalek specifically, the nomadic tribe known as the Amalekites, who were perennial enemies of Israel. The term is used to denote both the people and their eponymous ancestor, Amalek, who is the grandson of Esau. Amalek, and the people that come from them, are Edomites. But they are a family within the Edomites that has such a large group or a large kingdom within their nation or within their family tree that they basically a tribe mentioned separate from Esau. Then we have Palashat. Palashat. We got Palashat, and then Yeshavia. Let's see if I can fit this. Yeshavia. Tussle War. Yeshavia. And Tussle War. I managed to get all verse 7 on one line, which is good. We got Philistines or Philistia. The word "I'm" means with. Imagine Philistia is like this. Philistia with the inhabitants or Yashab. Inhabitants, Tyre, or Tyre is another way to mention it. Tyre, Tyre, or something. Inhabitants of Tyre. We've gone through plenty of enemies of the Most High's chosen people. There are a lot of people who have considered the best interest for Israel to be destroyed. The sad thing is, they think that that has to do with the ones that are there today, and that is not the case. Consider that just lineages after that are fighting over the reward of our people not in it. The resources, the land, the historical foundation. They lay claim to what does not belong to them. I'm going to leave this on here for a moment without any interruptions so that you can get the chance to write this down, and then we'll read it. Gabal and Ammon and Amalek, Philistia, or the Philistines, same thing, with the inhabitants Tyre. And it is said in the Lashon Kodash, Gabal, Wa'amalon, Wa'amalak, Halashat, Ein Yashad, Tazawar. Then we go into verse 8 or verse Ha. Verse 8. This one starts off with Gam Ashawar, if I'm not mistaken. Gam Ashawar. Ga Ashawar. Gam Ashawar. Nalawa. Wa. Mom. Hayawa. Sarawai. Labanya Lawat. Again, those moments where I have just the Hebrew on the screen itself, it's a good opportunity to write it down. But make sure you give yourself room to write above and a little bit below as well. I'm going to break down these sections here in a second. It reads in verse 8 or verse 5, Gam Ashawar, Nalawa, Imam, Hayawa, Zarawat, Labanya Lawat, Salah. That's the verse 8. What is it saying? Gam means also. Not to be mistaken with the word wa, which can also mean with or I. It's a different word, but it also can mean to join with. After the war is the Assyrians, derived from the word ashar, meaning to go straight or to be level with. Assyria in the Near East. Let's see. We know Assyria because Assyria is the land that Israel got taken to after Israel had been split. In fact, you had a lot of Assyrians that moved into that land and eventually also Amalek into that land as well. They tried to consistently fight over that. That would be considered the northern part of Israel or even partially modern day Israel as well. Assyria, Ashkelor is pronunciation. This is the Assyrians. Syria. Now the word Nalawa means has joined. The root word in that is strong H3867 Lawa. Lawa is joined. So what does that tell you? That tells you that the preposition used in this phrase, na, means has, or some form of position is a preposition. Na has, meaning in past tense. Lawa means to join. Nalawa means has joined. You understand? That's what turns into a past tense. That's a preposition. Look at the na at the beginning of the phrase. Again, Hebrews read from right to left. Imam. Imam. That's the next phrase there. With them. I am. Notice that I am is right here means with. This right here says imam. See that? This is a possessive adjective that is added to the end of a word. And when you see a ma added to the end of the word, it means them. So just going off of what we just read, I means with. I'm mom, adding a ma at the end with them. So what is the vocabulary word? It's right here, fine, just like right here. But we're adding the possessive adjective. Who is with? Assyria is joined. There's your possessive adjective, them added to the end of I'm, and it becomes imam. Not ima. This is how we understand it to be pronounced. Ima. Ima. So the modifier is this ma being the last pronunciation, it is then joined with this one. Hayawa. Hayawa. It's the next phrase. Haya. This is part of it. There's normally another ha at the end of the phrase. But then we have this modifier here. Wa being added. Them, they, notice that? It's another thing there. What is it saying? They have. So the word haya means to exist, to be, to become. To exist, to be, to happen. Haya. So, have is the root word. Haya means to have, to exist, to be, to occur. Hayawa, again, we're just adding a wa at the end of the phrase, meaning it's a possessive adjective, and it's a wa right here. We use the same rules that we've been using before. Wa means they. They have. They have. Of course, when we translate it into English, we're reading it left to right, but it's actually written right to left. So it's almost like when we're actually reading it in Hebrew, the way you have to think about it is like it's saying have they. Also, Assyria has joined with them. They have. This is continuing another thought. It says they have helped, or in the English translation, it says hoping. They have hope in the children of Lot. That's what this rest of this phrase is, and it says Lot. They have, I feel like I need to move this over a little bit more and clean this up for the recording. So they have helped. Zarawai. It's the whole thing. Helped. Who has helped the children of Lot? The Assyrians. Also, Assyria has joined with them. They have hope in the children of Lot. This is crazy because that applies to this day. Ishmael, Philistia, East Edom, Amalek, they have all helped boost up in this day and time the children of Lot. Who are the children of Lot? It is Ammon. It is Moab. Those are Lot's children. And so they have all come together in one conglomerate. It's called NATO, if you don't know. NATO and BRICS. That's what it's called nowadays. But that confederacy has gotten weak because of disagreements over land and resources and just overall competition economically on a global scale. While there is commerce between the two, there are still weapons being drawn and pointed at and created for use against one another in a time been building up for a long time, actually. The sons. This is one that we should recognize. Ban. La Banya. Here we go. Ban. Son. Oh. The sons. Banya. Yeah. This is making a plural. The sons. It should say ha. But it's just how we write it. I'm not going to argue. Labanya Lawat. Lawat means lot. The sons of Lot. They have helped the sons of Lot. This is starting to look a lot more neat. I'm trying to write it as neat as I can. We're going to start from the top. I'm going to read what we have so far. Gabal, Wa'amawan, Wa'amalat, Halashath, Ein Yeshabia, Tazawar, Gam Ashawar, Nalawa, Haimam, Hayawa, Zarawat, Labanya Lawat. The last word in that sentence, Salah. Salah, which means suspension or pause. The origin of the word salah is uncertain, but it is believed to be derived from a root word meaning to lift up or to exalt. Salah. It's almost like a pause or a reflection. That's why it says suspension or pause. Salah. There's the translation of it. It was nice when the markers just written, you know what I mean? We'll give it a moment. This is what we have so far for today's class. Give you some time to write it down, screenshot what's up, what you got there. Oh, Syria. Let me see if there's any spots in a minute. That's the entire thing right here. whatever's underlined is a part of the root word. I'm going to try to get to the habit of making sure to underline the root word. That way you can more or less get a better understanding using these rules here on how the outline characters modify it. Okay. Labanya Lawat. Salah. Ashalaham. All that. That's excellent. We need to share this one. Verse 9. Abagada hawaza ta ta ta. So this is the next train of thought. So that now that we've mentioned the entire confederacy of nations that are against the Israelites and against the Most High, the author of this prayer, he says Salah at the end of that sentence to kind of end his train of thought, right? It's almost like saying period, but actually saying the word period. But I don't want to really akin it to that because it's kind of feminine. Females do that. This is a different term. That means that's the end of that phrase. That's the end of that train of thought. And then we're starting a new thought process right here in verse 9. And it starts off by saying, Aisha laham. Aisha, and then laham. Aisha, laham. Kamadia is the next phrase. I'm writing the connectors here so you can see how to pronounce it. Aisha laham kamadia. Kataya sarah. Kataya sarah. We're going to break it down here in a second. This is a good example of another preposition. Kasaya sa ra. We'll break that down so far. Actually, you know what? One more. Hayab. Hayab. Let's break this down. Starting with the first phrase in the sentence. Aisha, Aisha, the root word Aisha is actually means to do, to make, to accomplish, to perform, or to act. So it's saying act with them, but in the translation of English, we use the word deal. Deal, meaning act upon them. We're saying deal with them. With them. So the next word here is with them. How? Now, the difference between, let's see, where's that? The thing about the word ham is that ham is actually a full word that means them. So it's almost like its own phrase, just like how there's, you could add a wa at the beginning of a phrase like wa, I'm a wa. But there is actually a separate word that means and that's separate from wa as a modifier. Sometimes the word is actually by itself because them hasn't even been mentioned alongside anything else. So it has to be pronounced by itself. Now, notice that this isn't the full phrase here. There's a la in front. There's a la that's a preposition, and that actually means with. Deal with them. La hum. Hum is the root word, it means them. La means with. And this being a preposition, give us, try to separate these as best as I could. When a la is used at the beginning of a phrase or on the right side of a phrase, it means with. Notice that I means with, just like how I means with here. What's crazy is that there's two different ways to say with them. With them right here is different from with them right here, but they still follow the rules of Hebrew. It's just, it depends on which is the main word in this in the phrase. So when it says with them right here, it's I'm mom, but the root word being I'm, which means with, just like how you see it right there, and then a ma added at the end, which represents them as a possessive adjective. However, over here, you look at the word ham. The word ham means they. It's the main word in this phrase, but the preposition la is added at the beginning, and it means with. So there are two ways to say it. There are two ways to say it. All right? It's just something I picked up just now looking at it, but it still follows all the rules and it still makes sense. It's just an alternative way to say it. So technically, I'm mom. Might be used here, but maybe perhaps the context with whatever word is more important is what's used. These are examples we'll see more of as we continue in the scriptures, break it down entire paragraphs the way that we have it, which really gives us a really more in-depth understanding of the language itself. So again, so far we have Aisha Laham, then it says Kamadian. Kamadian. Now here's the interesting thing. H4080 Madian is the root word or the vocabulary word for Midians. Midian. The word actually comes from the word dawan, which means to judge or to contend. That's what the name Midian actually means, but that is the word that's used here. So it says Midian. Shalom. Midian. We're going to see the same exact thing used for the next three phrases. Ka maya, ka saya sara'a, ka yabya. And this follows along with every single one. So the root word in this phrase goes up to here. And the root word in this phrase goes up to here. Notice the ka is by itself. But when we write it in English, it says as with. As with. It's different from this one. Because the with is in parentheses, it's not actually being pronounced. So technically you would say deal with them as Midian, as Sisera, as Jabin. That's what it's literally saying. So the preposition here, which is pronounced as a ka, we don't have that up here yet. Ka actually means as. there's any rapper that uses likes and similes, would be Lil Wayne, Canvas. They're always comparing something to something else when they use phrases like or as. Preferably they use the word like, but think of it as the same way here, where he's saying to deal with them the same way as he dealt with Midian, the same way that he dealt with Sisera. That's why he's saying as with Midian, as with Sisera. I'll write this down here. Sisera. Sayah Sarah. Kasayah Sarah. Sisera. Or Sisera. With again, ka meaning as, meaning compared to or likewise or something. As with Sisera, as with Jabin. Get a little bit more info on these. Starting with Midian. Midian. The geographical region of Midian. Midian, well, in the Bible, Midian is the son of Abraham and Keturah, and the name is also used to describe the land and people descended from him. The Midianites were a nomadic tribe, often in conflict with Israel. We know that they did not succeed with Israel, which is why there's an Israelite that's praying to the Most High that they deal with these other nations in the Confederacy the same way that the Midians got dealt with. The preference of the Most High being that they were overcome by Israel, that they were destroyed. Who else was on Israel's hit list at one point in time other than Sisera? Sisera. Age 5516, Sisera. Most likely of non-Semitic origin, reflecting the Canaanite or Hittite influence in the region. Sisera. This would be probably more so along the lines of the Canaanites during the time of Judges. Sisera. I believe that was the name of a leader of an army that were against Israel. Jabin, derived from the Hebrew word yavan, meaning to understand or discern. The name of the people is used in the Hebrew Bible to refer to two different Canaanite kings. The name itself suggests a person of understanding or discernment, which may reflect perceived wisdom or strategic prowess of the rulers. Jabin is a name associated with Canaanite royalty during the period of Judges in Israel's history. The first Jabin mentioned in the Bible is the king of Hazor, a significant Canaanite city-state in northern Canaan. So Jabin, these were again armies that Israel fought and defeated. So we list the entire Confederacy in Psalm chapter 83. We understand that their purpose was for Israel to not know their true heritage. And then we go as far as to then pray to the Most High, see to it that their end of the Confederacy is similar to the end of Midian, Sisera, Jabin, which were what? Armies that fell to the Israelites. Armies that continued against Israel and did not succeed. At the brook Kaisam, Banachal, we're going to finish it up like that. Banachal, 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 Payashwan, Wa, Ya, Sha, Wa, Payash. Let's write the translation. All right, so we got at the brook. We're here is brook. page 5158. The brook means a valley, a stream, meaning basically a location. The brook would mean a stream, a river, or valley, or a ravine. So the brook in question is the brook Kassan. You understand? Now, going in and getting the root word here for brook is Nachash. Oh, my bad. Nakal. Nakal. Ba means at. Technically, you could say Bahanakal, which would be at the. At the. So the ba, when it's used as a preposition, means at. You understand? At. At the brook. Brook again is Nahal. Right here. Which brook? Not Westbrook. But Kaishan, it's a location here. But Yashwan, the entire phrase. Yashwan. The brook of Kaishan. Yashwan. We're gonna have it. That's a lot of information. Again, these classes, it's a lot of information in each class. We don't want to be overwhelming with the information. We make sure that we can see the whole screen. Okay. So again, we have verses 7, 8, and 9 today. And in English, it reads, and continuing to list the confederacy is Gabal and Ammon and Amalek, Philistia, or the Philistines, with the inhabitants of Tyre. Verse 8, also Assyria has joined with them. They have helped the sons of Lot, Salah. Deal with them as with Midian, as with Sisera, as with Jabin, at the brook Kaisana. So again, the prayer is very, how do I say, it's almost like he's praying for these nations to be cursed with the same end of people that have failed to Israel. And in Hebrew, it is pronounced Gabal, Wa'imawan, Wa'imalak, Palashath, Im Yeshavya, Tazawar, Gam Ashawar, Nalawa, Imam, Hayawat, Zarawat, Labanya Lawat, Salah, Aisha Laham, Kamagyam, Ka Sayasara, Sayasara, Hayabya, Jabin, Banachal, Kwayashwan. And that's the Hebrew phrase that we have. That's the Hebrew that we have for you today. This again should be screenshotted, should be practiced, written, both with the assistance and then also even just by itself, or just the Hebrew by itself. There's nothing wrong with taking the time to take the Hebrew down, get practicing with writing it as neat as you can. These characters are not very complicated, but with repetition, they can look much better than my attempt here because I'm writing on a dry erase board, so it's not very easy to write, like this. When you're writing at a table, try to write as neat as you can. Try to keep the lines as straight as you can, and keep working on trying to make the presentation as good as possible. But there's no better way to do this than to do this manually, because from what I understand, being able to change the Hebrew from the Assyrian to the Lashon Kodash on the fly and give you the breakdown of it, give you the vocabulary, the understanding of each phrase, and even the rules for the prepositions, the possessive adjectives, it really brings it all together. What we've seen as we've continue to break down the prayer is that these rules have remained true throughout the entire language breakdown. The same possessive adjectives we keep seeing over and over with different vocabulary words. Same prepositions we keep seeing over and over with different vocabulary words. So we're seeing how these groups come to be, and it's through that repetition that we'll start to commit some of these vocabulary words to our memory. Some of these nations, these names that we see talk about a lot, you start to remember how to say it in Hebrew, and that's absolutely what we want to do in our school, is to get people to memorize as much as they can on the gosh. It only makes it a lot easier during the Sabbath service when it comes time for young men, troopers, and officers to go up and read. You understand? Because you should be able to then look at either one of these forms of Hebrew, but then always revert back to the divine Lashon Kodash pronunciation of the words. And just through time, I've been able to look at the scripture and write it down as I'm looking at it and pronounce it and say it the way that I can best try to put it together, because, again, getting the root words gives you a better understanding of how to pronounce the entire structure altogether. There may be some exceptions that change the way that we would change the root word, like Imam, for example, or Laham, which means the same thing, right, with them. That there are some exceptions, not so much to the rules, but just for the fact that they're different. I'm going to leave this on the board for one more moment. I'm going to close out today's class. Let's give it a moment. That's right after verse 2. So again, this has been the breakdown, continuation of Psalm chapter 83. We've done another 3 verses broken down in its completion. We're going to continue to piece together the rest of the prayer so that we have the entire understanding of the full Psalm chapter 83 in the ancient Hebrew, which is Lashon Kodash, aka Holy Tongue. Now, as you can, the Command Jimmy, we aim to be as thorough as possible when it comes to teaching anything. Scripture says to prove all things and hold fast to that which be true. So it is our job to make sure that we're bringing you the truth. We can use that to pray the Most High in the ancient language. So with that, this is the ISBPK. Started at 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, in 1969. We're under Commanding General Yohanan, here to teach the truth of the Bible. The so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American Indians are the real Israelites according to the scriptures. And with that, shalom.